Welcome to On Top of the Covers, a weekly podcast by Orlove, dedicated to all of you amazing people who tune in every week. We call you guys the creative visionaries, the entrepreneurs, the artists, makers, my favorite being disruptors around the world, carving your own path, figuring it out, doing your own thing. And we feature inspirational stories of people contributing to the culture of music because they get you, I get you, we get you. We're all the same in a lot of different ways. And we're always looking at these unconventional paths, right? And with our guests, it's how they did it creatively, artistically, personally, professionally. There's more than one way to do something. I'm Matt Gottesman. I'm your host and director of the Orlove brands. You can reach out to us at We Are Orlove on Instagram. It's us. We run, no matter how big we get, it's us behind the accounts that are running it. Same with at Matt Gottesman. I've been answering each and every single text, DM, reply, response for like the last 10 years. It is us. It is me. And we love you. So please feel free to reach out. And, we're basically, as you guys have probably heard both in the intro and just in general, that we always say that music is one of these biggest connectors in the world, right? It's been a common bond throughout centuries. And we wanted to just open up more of the conversations around the art, contributors, their missions, the entrepreneurial side of it, the marketing side of it, all the different things that are happening that make this common bond come to life. So that's why we always say we're here to show you unconventional ways and paths to success. And I have another amazing guest. We were just chopping it up for a little bit before coming on here, Susanne Hazendonk, and she's global head of marketing at Spinnin Records. And she will correct me on the pronunciation of her last name if I need be, but phenomenal background, studied commercial economics, and then started her career at Warner Music, Netherlands, working herself up from assistant to product manager, followed by head of media relations in dance music. And then in 2015, her affinity with and the passion for dance music caused her to make another step. And she moved from Warner to dance music's leading record label, Spinnin Records, just a small, tiny little outlet, that you might have globally heard. And here she became the head of product and then currently holds a position of global head of marketing. And in this function, she leads different teams with the Spinnin company, all focused on locking in the best results for the artists and the music. And we're going to talk about, the background of Spinnin, obviously, but, working independently under the wings of a major record label. And we're going to talk about a lot about niche to mainstream. This comes up actually more often than not because of when you're lesser known and where you're predominantly focused. And then what happens is in the progression of your work, of your talent, of your art, of your audience width, right? All those things that come in between. So we're going to talk about that. And we're also going to be focusing a little bit on, what's happening now in this worldwide dance scene, how much has it changed? And, what's been Spinnin's impact along the way? Where do we see it going? We're gonna just jump into all of it. But Susanne, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. That's quite the intro. Thank you so much.
That's all good. I will follow you around and be your hype man. So whenever you need, actually, Matt will introduce me here today. So I really, really appreciate you being here. And thank you, because I know it's 7:00 in the Netherlands. So I really, really appreciate your time. So I'll make this as, hopefully having coffee and chilling as possible.
Okay.
We always start with the rapid fire questions because we're very unconventional ourselves and people sometimes wait till the end. I like doing it at the beginning, and it also gives the audience a little bit of a flavor of your style and the things that you're passionate about. So without further ado, are you ready for the rapid fire questions?
I think I am.
Okay.
Let's go.
You are definitely ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, so question number one, and I know this is a tricky one because some people struggle with this. If all music was wiped away from the face of the earth, just all of it was gone, and you could only save 3 albums to listen to for the rest of your life, what would they be?
Yeah, that is a pretty tough question. I can go with that. I think I would definitely bring Carl Cox his live set at the Crowbar in Chicago. It's not really an album. It's out on CD and on vinyl though. So I think it counts. But that took me to techno, into dance music. And I think I wasn't even 20 years old when I first heard that set. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. So that was sort of my first, well, I wouldn't say birth, but steps into dance music as a whole. I would also take along Daft Punk's Alive. I mean, if you're in dance music, you can't ignore Daft Punk and the way they sort of mix that whole album into each other, or actually that live show, and especially Touch It together with Technology. Every time I hear it, I'm like, oh my God, I wish I was there. That's amazing. And as a third, I would probably take an album by Kanye West. I'm also a big hip hop fan. It's not just dance music with me. I think it would either be My Beautiful Dark Twisted or Watch the Throne. And the latter because I went to their concert in Belgium, and that was totally amazing. And it's just the memory and the whole emotion that brings that kind of made me choose that one.
Those are really good options. And, part of the thing I love about that question is you see so many influences all across the board that, it's not uncommon to hear people say, well, for a jazz album, and I'm like, or for a classic album or classic guitar, I mean, you're like, all right, you can see that music really does empower us across a wide range of genres that, often people think, especially if we work in one particular genre, that, that must be the only one you love. And you're like, no, I love it all,
Exactly.
for the most part.
And I mean, it's not just hip hop and dance music either. I love rock music as well. I'm a big Arctic Monkeys fan, for example. So it goes sort of like throughout all genres.
So incredible. Now, question 2 sometimes bleeds over into question 1. Name an influential person, living or non-living. You can go as far back as you want, like throughout all of history, that if you could interact with for one day and night, who would it be?
I think in this case, I would pick Carl Cox because he is just so positive, and just the way he is as a person. I think that is what dance music, or even what music needs, he brings so much joy. And when he's behind the decks, you just have to smile, And I think if you spend 24 hours with him, it will be the 24 best hours of your life, probably. And I can't wait to read his biography that just came out. So I pre-ordered it.
Thus proving energy, right? People who bring that energy to the world, you just want to like be around them, That's what also gets expressed through the music. And that's why I think sometimes there's music and then there's like the layers to it. And a lot of it is the energy of the individual creating it. So good choice.
Thanks.
Okay. Question 3. In your opinion, what's the best music-focused film of all time for you? Now, I have to stress this. It can be a documentary or a rockumentary or a series or a fictitious film, or, we've even allowed The Outskirts. I mean, I don't want to give this up because maybe it was one of yours, but like, even like Pulp Fiction, where music is like a very intricate part of the flow, or like Grease, where music is a part of the, of the flow.
Yeah.
So that's how far apparently we've allowed it to extend.
That helps. I would probably go for a Dutch documentary called Thunderdome Never Dies, because I'm not sure whether you are familiar with the whole sort of hardcore movement that took place in the Netherlands. But
a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. It started out in the 90s, and it really properly was a movement. And I was so involved. I mean, I was quite young still. I think I was 16 or 17, and I bought all the merchandise, and I was sort of dreaming about going to these parties. And when I finally turned 18, I was able to go, and I was like, yes, here we go. So that was amazing. And then they made a documentary about that whole sort of concept and the brand and the people in that community. And it just gave me the chills, to sort of be part of it. I mean, I was still quite young, so I wouldn't say I was like a diehard member, but I was definitely sort of feeling that I was a little bit part of it. So that just brings up memories.
I feel like the last time I was in the Netherlands was for Queen's Day in Amsterdam, 2000, right? April 2000.
Yeah.
So I feel like I probably was just on the other side of it, but I mean, you can feel the energy, what an incredible energy. My God. Like, and it's Queen's Day, so it's like only 3 million people, Yeah.
I mean, it's so much fun every year, and everybody's dressed in orange, and it's just one big party throughout the whole country. It's amazing.
Yeah, we literally turned a corner and it was like Dr. Dre and Eminem were on the stage. I'm like, am I seeing this right now? Like, and then AC/DC was like in another like street. I'm like, this is amazing. I'm like, this is like a
Yeah,
utopia. What is going
yeah,
on?
yeah, yeah. I think Dutch people are quite eclectic, so to say. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. It was incredible. And the energy there was so good. Okay, well, I think you might have maybe answered prematurely question D, the fourth question, which we'll know, I guess we'll have to do a review after Carl Cox's book comes out. But otherwise, what's an important book, podcast, or maybe like an Audible or a show or something like that,
yeah.
it's helped you navigate your creativity and passion?
I must say, I I like to read just for fun and to relax. So I intend to kind of steer away from sort of study books, that are going like in depth and marketing step 1 to 10. I feel like I'm familiar with that, so I try to
Oh, yeah.
steer away from that. So to relax, I just love to read biographies of certain bands, people. And at the moment, I'm sort of in a flow that I read all sorts of biographies I just read Scar Tissue by Anthony Kiedis. And I'm now
Mm.
actually reading from Duff McKagan, who is the bass player from Guns N' Roses, just a story about his life. And it gives me the chills as well, because I mean, it's so cool to read the stories and how they just built themselves and how they started out, and now they're here, and everything that happened in between is. I think that's inspirational to hear the stories from the artists.
I think the fact that there's always so much more going on than what's shown is so
Yeah,
important to learn from. And if it was a takeaway from the day and age we're living in, I mean, I get that a lot of people are still putting up their highlight reels on social media, but I'm like, the rawness of like, you can actually document your biography in real time, and I think that, and it's always going to be more relatable. But yeah, because it's so inspiring when you hear more about like the lessons and I didn't see that coming.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and how far along they came. It's really like literally started from the bottom and now they're here. And
Right.
that's just to quote Drake, but that's really inspirational for me as a marketer within the music industry.
Well, without further ado, those are incredible answers. And I want before we like jump in and talk about like spinning, and we're going to talk about
Yeah.
independence and all that stuff. I would love if you could share your background, like how we got here, and you could start with what you were experiencing with the '90s and with music, and then however far back you want to go. But
Yeah.
the progression of you in these roles, and the decisions that you were making when you were like, what, I want to do this now, or I want to shift and make this pivot, or this opportunity is coming up. I love when all of you give the background, and so does the audience, because it kind of shows, oh wow, like we're all figuring it out along the way. And it's interesting how coincidences seem to happen, like magical moments in our life. But I would love for you to walk us through your journey a little bit.
Well, to be honest, I kind of always wanted to work in the music industry, even since I was a little girl. I mean, my dad always was a huge fan of music and dance music in particular. So I was raised by listening to his music, and I just have these memories that we were sitting in the car and we just sat there and listened to. It was a CD range called Turn Up the Bass, which is it's a Dutch compilation series with all sorts of dance music on it. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. And I think it was like 7 or 8 years old. So it started quite early with me, to be honest. And I entered the club scene quite early. I used to be a dancer in the clubs and a promoter. So it was kind of my thing throughout my teenage years. And like you mentioned, I studied commercial economics and I was focused on entertainment marketing. And I got an internship at Universal Music. That was in 2008, I reckon, which was amazing. And that even proved more that I really wanted to work in this industry. And then I made the step to a management company and worked with a few artists. And after that, Warner Music Netherlands called me and they were like, hey, we're looking for an assistant. Are you interested? And I was like, hell yes, I'm interested. Was an assistant for, I think, about 6 months, and then the opportunity raised to become a product manager. And I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't be like too bold and, have too much attitude and say, I can do this. But I was like, fuck it. I would just give it a try. And I got the job. And I did that for quite a long time. And I worked mostly the Warner Brothers, it was then, and the Atlantic roster. So I worked with Bruno Mars, Red Hot Chili Peppers, but also Michael Bublé, for example. So it was quite wide. And that actually learned me a lot, just to think out of the box and come up with custom-made approaches. And then I moved over to head off and blah, blah, blah. And then Spinnin called. And I was like, okay, well, I have this love for dance music. And they just gave me the opportunity to sort of build my own team within the company. And now 6 years later, I'm still there.
Knowing what you knew, from before getting to create your own team, how much did that really guide you in, okay, if I were to do things, here's how I envision it, right? I would love to know, like, how much of the influence from the previous eras to that, and then, how what you did differently, that what you saw, like, this is how I want to do this. This is how I want to create a team.
I think when I just entered Spinnin Records, they were very much still focused on Beatport, for example. That was still a huge and influential portal, which to some extent it still is, just not looking at the numbers, but it's still influential. But at Warner Music, I was already like working on the streaming portals and just working on the future, so to say. So I was like, okay, what is it that we need to make sure that we are ready for this? And Spinnin was ready on the social side. They embraced that from day one. That's the reason we have such a big following. So I wasn't contributing to any of that because there was already set in place. So I don't want to take any credits for that. But when it comes to, marketing and a certain artist service level, what we call it internally, and just thinking about marketing and building records, and not just through Beatport, but through other ways. That was sort of my goal. And then it was, okay, what do I need? How many people do I need? In the beginning, it was actually still small. We started out with quite a big team. And at the moment, our complete marketing team consists out of, I think it's 35 people at the moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
God bless you.
I'm only heading half because we are divided in brand marketing. So Spinnin Records is a brand and the channels, and then records, and I'm heading up the records department. So it's 18 people. Still quite a lot, but
it is. And it really does take a village. I think that's the part that people don't always realize. I had to scale all of the my own followers, like, through the grind. And I think what and the reason why I bring that up is because what people, I think nowadays, in your role, you've got distribution, streaming, content marketing, advertising, media, brand marketing, sponsorships, podcasts, like there's this ecosphere. I love when people say, like, oh, you make it look so easy. I'm like, right. But to your point, you've got a good team,
I got an amazing team, and I think that's the only reason we are thriving, and are having success. You can't do this on your own. And some people, and even some artists and managers, think they just release a track and there it goes,
right?
Not again. Sometimes it happens. You have a few lucky ones, that's for sure. But 9 times out of 10 is just really hard work.
Yeah, you can thank TikTok for that.
Like,
oh, well, I woke up to like 3 million. I'm like, what do I do with this? I'm like, you've got to be kidding.
But even then, we are working on a lot of tracks that are like huge within TikTok, and that's great. Even especially since we now have a licensing deal in place with them, so we actually make money for it. So it's
Right.
definitely a model, but it doesn't mean you create a global hit. You know, you
Right.
still need to make the crossover to radio, to the DSPs, etc. So it's you're not there yet.
Right. And and you bring up a good point too, is that yes, okay, maybe the song itself is getting reach, but the
Yeah,
management of the cultivation, the management, the engineering, the making sure there's long-term sustainability, covering
yeah,
your, covering your ass, covering your, having your ducks in a row. Like there's always so much more. I think a lot of times people, they see like a highlight reel, they see a win, and that's their kind of scope, that's their perspective. And you're like, there's
yeah.
a lot of time and energy and money that goes into sustainability. Right.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it goes throughout the whole chain. I mean, it's Spinnin as a whole. We have 85 people working there, and 35 is just marketing, but the rest is
Mm.
sort of supporting, and that's at least as important as what we do, because
Right.
you need everybody to be in place and to be on top of the game and able to reach success.
Mm. So true. So true. And I like that you, when you were bringing it up earlier, you're like, well, because I'm also focusing on the future. It's nice to work on the big, but like I'm also always focused on the future. Was it Wayne Gretzky said like, well, I'm aiming the puck for over there, for where you need to be, not for where we are today, right? And so I want to talk about like the niche to mainstream, and we can talk also about Spinnin as a whole, like it's how it's set up, right? You'd mentioned about it being, working independently under the wings of a major record label. Do you want to talk a bit more about how Spinnin infrastructurally is made up?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we are a separate entity. We
Mm-hmm.
are Spinnin Records, and we have our own budgets, our own targets, our own goals, and our own team. So for, I would say, 80% of the records, we do everything ourselves. But there are a lot of records with great potential. And with great potential, I mean the ability to even become a worldwide hit or a European hit or in a certain territory, for example. And then it's really sufficient that we have this collaboration in place with Warner Music.
Mm-hmm.
So if we feel like, okay, this track has a certain sound that can work really well in Germany, for example, and we have a solid network in Germany, but it's never as strong as a local affiliate. You don't go and grab a coffee with Spotify Germany every week. It just doesn't work like that. But our German team does. So that's sort of the difference. So we just talk to them and see, can we work together? Is that interesting for you? Is it interesting for us? What do we need? What should we do? And then we come up with a plan together, and then we can really take it to the next step. And I think that's is what differs us from other companies, that we have the ability to, what we call it internally, upstream it to a major. But that doesn't mean that we do it with every track. I mean, we know our way in the dance scene, and we have been there since 1999. So we have quite a solid network in place, and we know what to do without sounding arrogant. But I mean, there is a quite experienced team in place. But if you really, really want to make that next step and have that huge impact, then it's amazing to have a big major behind you that can, really take a track to the next level.
Do you feel like the industry's done, maybe more recently, a decent job at adapting to moving, sometimes not, I don't want to say moving completely away from the old paradigm, but understand that there is a new paradigm, and that deals are just different now. They're done differently now, right? Do you feel like that they've
Yeah.
adapted well, or are some are adapting well?
Um, Man, that's hard to say without burning people and companies. So I don't
No
know.
names, no names. No, no,
So,
like in general, I mean, because I mean, I get it, because it used to be more of a controlling paradigm, and the internet's the maverick, and
yeah,
it's changed. I was a friend of mine, Josh Binder, out in LA. He talks a lot. He's an entertainment attorney, right, for all these artists,
yeah,
and he was talking about like things now, you can kind of treat each thing as an occasion, or like, you know, you can do deals differently, because it's like, well, now we're dealing with more like an independent deal of its own. It's like, let's just focus on just this thing right here for this particular moment.
Yeah.
And then, you know, but we can do some other things as well too. Like it's the ideation now has kind of changed because the landscape has changed. But of course you still get some people who are like, this is the only way it'll be done. Like, then you're going to be left behind. I don't know.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, there are definitely some, you know, labels or management companies that are still quite old school,
Right.
and think that if you pitch a track to Spotify and service a track to radio, you have a hit. But you need to have a proper story to tell these people in order to get some sort of attention. So it just doesn't work like that anymore. You need more. And I think in dance music, we are actually quite ahead of the game, to be honest. Yeah.
Well, and because it's so highly interactive, and it was, I feel like dance, like they were always all very interactive, collaborative, keyword collaboration, you know, so it was sort of like, oh, I got you, you got me, yeah, like, let's do this thing together and then we'll figure it out. Like, it's very almost kind of entrepreneurial, like, we'll try this and let's see where it goes.
Yeah.
You know, mindset, right? So it was always very like, oh, I got you, you know?
Yeah, and I think in dance music, we are not afraid to take risks.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, let's try. Does it work? Amazing. Does it not work? Shame. Let's try something else. And and I think that was also one of the main reasons for me to take the leap towards dance music, and especially a label like Spinnin Records, who is, well, sort of self-made, I would say. And now it's this huge community and fan base. I mean, it's cool to be a part of, that's for sure.
I love hearing that, and an organization that promotes, let's try it and see what happens, you know. And I mean, innovation, creativity, all of these, you know, some of the greatest things weren't planned. A lot of things weren't planned.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's music, it's emotion, and it happens that we all listen to a track with the team and we're like, this is a hit. And then you talk to the parties and they're like, well, we're not so keen on it. And it happens, you know, you can't predict it, but it also works the other way around. There are some tracks that you're like, well, let's see what happens. And then they become the biggest hits on earth. So, I mean, we know something, and we know sound-wise what works, and we know how to find our way. But in the end, you never really know.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, you don't know until you take signals from the market. You have to literally experiment in real time, and then you figure, you find out, you get a pulse on things from the way that people are interacting with it. And even then, you know, sometimes that's a little hard with the algorithms, you know, but that's why you cultivate a very diehard community audience, you know. Right. And you guys have really done that. I have, you know, Spinnin Records pulled up on here. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, 3.3 million followers. Do you feel that it's cultivated like a community? Like, you see a lot of, you know, the regulars that pop in. I don't know. After a while on social, you start to see like all the regulars that like they'll respond to everything I post. I'm like, I love you guys, you know. So do you guys see a lot of that?
Yeah, I think we have quite a strong community, and I must say, times are changing. I mean, we started out as more of a big room label, you know, and everybody knew what they were getting from us. They knew they were getting Quintino with Epic and Borges with Tsunami, you know, like Martin Garrix with Animals, like the huge, you know, big room sound tracks. But now we kind of evaluated throughout the decades, and we work with a very broad range of sounds and music, and it's, even for us, it's challenging to kind of keep that all together, because you want to attract so many people with different tastes. So that's also the reason we are building sub-labels, you know, like Spinning Deep, for example, who is completely focused on house music, which is more, I wouldn't say underground because we are Spinnin Records, but more club focused. I think that's the right word, and we know how to attract that audience. And we work with a lot of sub-labels like Musical Freedom from Chesto, who has its own fan base, and with Controversia from Alok, who is this huge star from Brazil. So we have this umbrella brand, Spinnin Records, and beneath that we have this smaller brand that we are loading with new people and a new audience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes absolute sense. And I think that that's the part that people don't always realize in growth too, is that like you always have kind of the house brand, and then you evolve, and if people really love your work or what you're trying to do and how you're trying to implement change or design within the industry, you start to have these sub labels, sub category brands, affiliate brands, partnerships, strategic partnerships, before you're like, wow, we've got a culture all the way over there. Where did that come from?
Yeah, exactly. And you just need to keep reinventing yourself.
Yes.
If we were sort of like, okay, we have this big room audience and that's it, that's our audience, then we wouldn't exist anymore, I reckon. Because I mean, big room is still important, but it's not the leading genre at the moment. So we were forced to build these sub labels and sub communities, actually, which worked out quite well up till now. That's it.
Well, and building the parachute on the way down. We don't always know what we need until we just like go out and start building, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, like here's a new need that wasn't a need before, now it is, and here's how we can solve it if it's within our wheelhouse to solve. And a lot of times it is, and it creates and recreates new avenues, right? So I think that's the best part of it.
Yeah, 100%.
From a standpoint of building artists, right, from the bottom to the top, newbies, if you will, the young in the game ones, because they can be at any age. I would love for you to talk about the progression that in playing that role, the building sustainability around them, because I also do feel from an ethics and an integrity standpoint, right, like making sure talent has the ability to flourish all the way to its massive capabilities and capacity for global impact, but making sure to have things in place along the way that make it sustainable, because there's everything from mental wellness to harder stuff that happens to people along the way. So I would love for you to talk about like just all the avenues, all the things that come up in building artists from the bottom to the top.
We don't want to just service tracks and see if it sticks. You want to build proper artists. You want to build authorities. You want to build brands, and you can only do that if you just lay a solid foundation first. So I think, and that's what we're trying to teach our artists as well, that it's sort of managing expectations. You can't. It doesn't happen that often that you send a track out to radio or send it out to the streaming portals and boom, you have a hit, you have an established artist, and here we go. It takes time, it takes effort. And what we do at Spinnin is that we look at it custom-made approach every time. So what do we need in terms of content? How can we build an artist through social media? Is an artist comfortable with certain social media channels? I mean, we have a lot of artists that are like, TikTok, no thank you. So not me. And we don't want to force them into something that they're not. We want them to be their own identity and stay that way. And we always tell them that we need to conquer territory by territory, And we now, for example, have this kid from Austria who is 17 years old called Lumix. And he's now huge in Austria, he's huge in Germany. And we're now building him towards the rest of Europe. So he now has a solid hit in the Nordics. And we're like, okay, so we have conquered those territories. What's next? Netherlands, Belgium. What can we do in France? And I think that's sort of the way to go, where you need to understand these markets, and you also need to bring the artist to the market, to the fans over there, to show his or hers capability and what distinguishes him or her from the others.
I love that, because we have those options more than ever now. And I feel like in the past, companies, labels, brands were like, nope, this is the way everybody's doing it, that's why we're going to do it. Which, don't even get me started on that comment. This is how everybody's doing it. I'm like, right. That's why you're stuck in the first place. So
Exactly.
I like the fact that you were saying, like, if they don't really want to do TikTok, but it's like nowadays it's like, you know what, I like you for this podcast, I think you should go over there. And I like there's a community going on over in this territory. That'd be really cool. Here's some really great podcasts. Here's some really great events that are happening. Here's some really great events, whatever it might be. That there's so many out. Or, hey, here's a really great influencer specifically from that place with 500,000 followers. Like, you guys should do a quick rap on IGTV or something like that. Like, there's so many more. Now authenticity gets to thrive more than ever because there's so many different ways to do it. Right.
And I think it also, and so do we need to be humble, we can't come in with an attitude like, we got this and we're Spinnin Records, or I am this artist and you should play everything I release. It doesn't work that way. I mean, there is, and I said this before, it's hard work from both us and the artists. We need their involvement as well. Management, everything needs to be on board.
I love that. Humility gets everybody way further than they could ever possibly imagine, as long as they stay close to that, the humbleness and the humility and I
mean, if an artist is really nice to talk to, and he or she is really nice to my team, and we feel like we're doing this together, we run way harder than if an artist is a dick. It just works that way.
Yeah.
And it's the same with our partners.
Absolutely.
If they do everything they got asked for, and the partner was like, oh my God, he's so keen, he's so on board, he's so much fun, he's so intelligent, he's such a good producer, anything, it helps.
Yeah.
It helps build the story.
It really, I've been saying for a few years, humility is truly a superpower. And I think that people sometimes overlook it. And I'm like, oh no, I get it. You were probably sold somewhere that it's weakness. I'm like, that's not. I was like, it's staying grounded in who you are and treating people with respect and asking questions and taking time to do things a good way, a right way for you, a healthy way for you, and that there's other people involved, and it's self-awareness, and it's a lot of things all at once that'll make you last decades versus one and done, or in and out, or 5 years and done, or whatever it might be. It allows you to and it's truly how you get great mentorship, right? So I mean, these artists look at you as like probably the mentor. I mean,
Oh, I wouldn't go that far, but yeah.
You have an important role, Susanne. But truly, because of the being global head of marketing, and it's like you get to nurture the talent, but you also get to say like, hey, like here's some cool things along the way to be thinking about that can create this kind of to honor the life, to respect the longevity of the things you can create, and hey, by the way, here's some other things along the way that you might also be able to implement when it's time, and why these things are applicable that you might not have thought about yet or aren't planning for, but maybe you should,
Yeah, you just have to keep talking and listen to each other. I think that's most important. And we need to listen to an artist, to his or her needs and their goals and how they want to establish themselves, and they sometimes need to take some advice from us as well, and meet each other in the middle. And I think that's the best way to move forward.
Yeah, I think this came up on a podcast once. The idea of when you're older, you get to bring a level of experience and knowledge, but you always want to be reinventing and be close to the creativity. And so the younger in the game and the older in the game really need each other in a lot of ways. They need like long-term sustainability and guidance.
Yeah.
We need a kind of like, hey, like push boundaries. I want to see what I'm not seeing. I want more like creativity, more like go for it. Like let me understand where you're at. Like what's happening on the ground that maybe I'm not seeing or have as much time because of these responsibilities over here. So I think there's such a beautiful marriage, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you need these young people, to give you input. And now I sound like a grandma, but
No.
what I mean. I mean, I'm 37 and I have people in my team who are 20, 21, and they teach me stuff. And I love that. I mean, that's the way it should be. And I
Yes.
can guide them throughout other areas that they are not that experienced in. And I think that's the way it works. And then you can flow with each other and then you come to the greatest things.
That's the mark of a great leader, one who also who can guide, but who can also listen, especially listen for all the things that you don't even, you're not even maybe aware of, or,
Yeah.
For the things that aren't always said, most importantly,
Yeah, I
right?
agree. I think the stupidest thing you can do is think you know it all.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know everything. 100% I don't. And there are people in my team who know more than I do, especially on a day-to-day base. And I love
Right.
it that they keep feeding me with information. And if you just have these brainstorms and these creative sessions and somebody says that and then another idea pops up and maybe we can do this and maybe we can that gives energy, and we always involve our artists into this process as well to give them this energy too, and that they know how this comes together and what our way of thinking is. That it helps.
Mm. It's true. It's really true. And the more we can allow them to flourish too, and then they feel empowered by that. They're like, oh wow, like I'm being listened to. I'm
Yeah.
like, you should be listened to. That's like, that's how growth happens. For them
Yeah.
to be able to express themselves and teach us stuff.
Yeah.
So what's going on with Spinnin, like currently? What's happening with? I mean, because look, you have had some significant impact on the dance scene, and what's been going on? I mean, I know times are a little interesting, but like, do you guys have like some really cool things coming up that that are expanding right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's never a dull moment at Spinnin Records, to be honest.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, I mean, we release approximately 20, 25 tracks each week, which is, yeah, it's quite a large amount. So there's
Wow.
always cool things coming up and new signings or big names or big names that come back to spinning, that's always cool to see as well. We are also very much active into gaming,
Hmm.
and that's an important pillar for us. Yeah, I think it makes sense. It's these audiences have so much similarities, and we see that every time. And we work with Twitch, we work with Discord, we set up our own gaming events, but we also work with a partner like Free Fire or Evergin, which are games, and we create avatars of our artists in it and create a music video and push it through our social channels. That's so cool. That's such a different way of working and thinking out of the box instead of just going through the original route. Like, okay, let's go to radio, let's pitch
Hmm.
and see where it goes. And these things just that can make a difference, and you can attract a new audience as well.
I
Yeah.
I feel like that's I want to say, like, is it for the old business paradigm? Is it that they want to just keep doing what they do because they got lazy? Like, or is it because, like, now you're right, there's so many different ways to do things. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, and even now, and then people, when they do catch up, they're like, oh, so like Instagram and TikTok, you're like, and Twitch and Discord and
Yeah.
Telegram and oh, and we'll
Yeah.
be doing this event over here through this live streaming platform, and then we're going to loop that back through here, and then let's not forget the blockchain event next week, and oh, and so just made their
Yeah.
NFT, so yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you should like go along with the flow
Yes.
and jump onto trends that are happening and see what it can mean for your business or your
Mhm.
markets or your artists, or everything in between. And I think that's, I mean, we we are in a good position. We are quite a big
Mhm.
company, and we have a separate department working completely on brand partnerships. So that's a privilege. I'm aware that not everybody has that, but you see that it takes us to the next level, and you create something new. and that also creates a story to tell. That's in the end what it's about, right?
Yeah, and like the way you were talking about, like with the gaming and creating the avatars and inputting them into these virtual worlds. I mean, it's cool because you get to take the story across so many platforms and into so many different areas that people are hanging out. You're like, I didn't know about this. Like, it's cool because I'm watching a massive convergence of like this artist doing this thing with the gaming community over here that is like doing something with a fashion person over here and a mural artist over here, and they all in different communities are like, I was on your Clubhouse last night, but tonight I'm on doing live Twitch and we're going to talk about this. It's cool to watch this convergence happening. And I realize it's a little bit of a wild, wild west for right now, but it, as is anything when it's newer, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is. And we just have to be careful that we don't dive into everything.
Yes.
We have limited resources, and you can't do anything and everything at the same time. You need to make choices that make sense and that can really have a big impact. And you have again, you need to take risks into that area as well. And we are very much focused on gaming and sports because, I mean, sports and our music, that is sort of, it's one-on-one, so that makes sense too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's incredible. I mean, this is like, you guys are doing some amazing things. How long has Spinnin been in the game at this point? What year are we at?
They started at 1999, so it's now 22.
Yep, 22 years. Wow. And talk about like really coming in just as technology was, I mean, that was web. We were going from web 1.0 to 2.0, and now we're moving to 3.0. And it's but I mean, talk about a beautiful time. So it's been here since the beginning of technology, let me not say it like that. Since the internet culture started to understand that there's something new happening, and bringing people together. So that's incredible. That's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
How do people come to you now? Like, do you guys find most of the new artists that are you just like, do you have kind of like a whole street team that's like, hey, you got to check these guys out? Or is it, do people ever approach you guys as well?
Yeah, that happens quite a lot, actually. On the website, we have a subpage called the talent pool. So people really can drop in demos, and we have somebody listening to these demos the whole day, so they actually get listened to. And we release 4 or 5 tracks each month just to give talent a chance.
Nice.
I mean, not everybody sticks, but we at least try to build some names throughout our talent pool, to mainstream. And it's not happening overnight, but I mean, if it's about storytelling, that's the best story you can tell, right? Somebody you found through your talent pool and then is now a big international superstar. That's the dream.
I love that you guys do that. One of my first jobs was at Virgin Records in the A&R department in Beverly Hills in the sound room. They had boxes and boxes and boxes of unheard albums, and I asked them, like, do you mind if I like listen to all this stuff? They're like, please. Like they just weren't getting, weren't getting, no knock to them. It's just that they weren't getting to them. And I mean, there was like some heavy duty talent in there, which, by the way, they did later on go on to become something. And, but it was funny because I'd listen to all of these and I'd either email them or I'd call them, I'd make copies of their stuff, and I'd say, hey, I have zero authority. But I just wanted you to know that, like, you're onto something. I love what you're doing. I'm like, I'll try and like push this. But I mean, again, this is 2000, 2001. Like, it's a different time frame. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, but it was like I was trying. But to have something like you were saying, like that's like their goal is to listen to everything that's coming in. I think is really, really great because there's so much good stuff that if you don't, and there was so much in there. And then, they did become, some of them did become big later on. And I did have one of them on my podcast, and I'm like, listen, I don't know if you remember my email. I was a kid, and here we are 15 years later, but I loved you since the beginning.
Yeah. That's the best thing. I mean, we need to be realistic. We can't listen to everything, but I mean, we try to listen to as much as we can and give talent a proper chance. I mean, it has been a slogan for years, from bedroom producer to international superstar, and it's still something we want to do. Yeah.
And in fairness to you guys too, like, you're managing a lot of things, you know, even when people reach out via DM, yes, I do get to every DM, but you know, like after a while you're like, okay, you know, there's a lot there, and you know, it's energy, and you guys, you know, you're doing already so many good things, and it's like good to, I always think it's always good to streamline things. Like, all right, if these are the top questions here, like, let's just move everything over here, and you know, you guys can submit here, we'll get back to you, you know, and we're on it, and we're gonna do what we can because we love our community, right? So I love what you guys are doing. It's incredible. Where can everybody find you spinning online, like, or do, if there's any of the new stuff that's coming out or anything that you guys want them to check out, give us all the goods.
Yeah, I mean, we are very, very active on social media. So @Spinnin Records is always the handle, so you can find us there. We have a massive YouTube channel, 28 million followers. So subscribe to that. And yeah, that's sort of it. The website, obviously, newsletters, we have the whole shebang. So if you want to take a deep dive into the community, there are lots of opportunities, that's for sure.
Yeah, amazing. And they can get them all from the website too, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yes.
Amazing. Susanne, this was amazing. Thank you so much for giving me an hour of your time.
Of course, it was amazing. Thank you.
Absolutely. Sit back for just 1 second. But for everybody listening, for Susanne Hazendonk, did I say that right? Hazendonk?
Great.
Okay, good. I told Susanne at the beginning that it's a very big deal for me. I love respecting. It's like, it shows it's like honoring another human and their name. Like, what's in a name, right? Like, that's a big deal. So please, everybody, you know, Spinnin Records on Instagram. You'll find them online, YouTube. Reach out, you know, and there's a lot of different ways that you can, you know, get involved, whether from the community aspect, the artist aspect, you know, the readership aspect in the newsletter, whatever it might be. We love you guys. You know, we were talking about you, and we knew you were going to be coming on the show. We're like, this is incredible. So thank you guys. And thank you, Susanne, for tuning in. If you're listening to this right now on Apple or Spotify or radio.com or iHeart or all of the places, you can watch our video on YouTube @Orlove, and, you know, leave your feedback. We love it, you know, unless you're a dick. No, I'm just kidding. No, we love feedback. We love it. We love, you know, discussion, and, you know, we're here to constantly take in, you know, what are some of the other things that you guys want to hear about. But it means a lot to us. It means a lot to, you know, our movement. Also, please leave a 5-star review on Apple. It definitely helps, you know, spread the awareness of the show. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, of course, you can find us on all major platforms @WeAreOrlove, myself @Matt Gottesman. We truly, truly, truly appreciate you. Thank you, and we're out.